You're recording.
We're recording. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to video class. Good to see you, but I wish I could see you, but I don't. But I hope you can hear me. This evening, what we want to go over is the Honor Book, Chapter 3, Core Values and Culture. And one of the things that's that you don't really get reading Honor the first time through and so on is that he's developing an argument from Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And Chapter 3 is kind of a further corollary to the points he's made in 1 and 2. So I want to remind you of 1 and 2 a little bit just to sort of get us in the right context. The first thing with Chapter 1, which we looked at, was the question of what's the relationship between ethics and business. And of course, he dealt with students. Honor dealt with students coming back to class at night, but being working in the workforce. And their view was that ethics was very extrinsic to business. That the two was like oil and water, let's say. And so the key question that he raises there is business immoral by nature, or is it essentially related to ethics? And of course, he wants to answer yes, that it is essentially related to ethics. Business is essentially a human activity. As a human activity, business is by that fact moral activity. And he goes even further saying, since business activity is both human and moral, it also has an ultimate spiritual principle. So he's viewing business, we might say, in very rosy light. I could say that on the other side, with regards to business, there's a lot of cynicism, because most of the news that makes it is about companies violating their ethical standards and so on. So that's where we're used to seeing. But for people who are professional and dedicated to business, they take it as a moral enterprise. The second chapter, he wants to. Second chapter, his big point is a better way to think about business. And what he's offering here, and I'm not offering this to you as the truth. That remains to be seen. You have to, as if you're the jury, you have to wait till the evidence is in before you make up your mind. But what we need to do immediately is to understand what he wants to say. And what he wants to say in Chapter 2, a better way to think about business is the specific contribution of business is to increase the general prosperity of a society. So that business has a mission beyond itself, beyond merely making money. Now, once again, that's a kind of rosy way to look at things, but we know that I'd say there's a cynical side to say people are in it for money and that's it. Money's the bottom line, and that's basically what's going on. But what Honor wants to say is that the function of business is not to make money. That's subsidiary. That's a corollary. That's a byproduct. The main thing that business is supposed to be doing is offering and providing goods and services to the community as a whole. So that's the background of what he wants to talk about tonight in Chapter 3, core values and culture. So let's get into then Chapter 3. I want to start off with the main point that I think the main point of Chapter 3 is, and it's in a quote from page 43, 45, the top of page 45. He says the main point: once the paradigm shift from making money to producing goods and services has been made. Then core values become a necessary corollary. A business lives or dies on the perceived value of the goods and services it provides. So, if we're thinking about the dilemma, the choice is the main thing a business wants to do is make money, or the main thing a business wants to do is provide goods and services. And then he says a business that only wants to make money is paradoxically on the way to not making money. And why? How can this be? Well, what he wants to say is the whole focus should be on the goods and the services that you're providing to the marketplace. If those aren't good, if they don't provide a value to people's life, they're not going to buy them. So if you're really interested in making money, the best thing is to offer excellent services or excellent goods. That is to say, your main focus first and foremost should be on goods and services. So that's his thesis. That's what he wants to. He's taking the arguments from the first two chapters a little bit further and saying that really now this gets to the point, if what you're offering to the market is goods and services, then you have to be offering something of that value. Now, this could be me, I could just be naive, but if you take a brand like Mercedes-Benz, or you take a brand like BMW, the perception is people are willing to pay a lot of money for them. The perception is that you're really getting something of that value. When you want to trade it in, that you get a high return on it. If you want to drive it, you'll get great pleasure out of it because it's so excellently made. There's a perceived value there, and I'm sure that Mercedes-Benz and BMW are in the business of making money. But in another way, if you think of them as human beings, just simple folks, it's their pride that's on the line. They want to feel and they want to say that they have the best product on the market. They have the best service on the market. That's what they're staking their money on. That's what they're taking a risk on. So Honor goes on, and he wants to develop this theme. If business is about producing goods and services, then the value of a particular product is key to business success. So we're moving in our thinking. We're moving in the way we're talking about not just producing goods and services for it, but goods and services that have a value. Now, that value is itself a very vague word, a very abstract word. It's hard to know exactly what's meant by the word value, but that's what we want to explore in this chapter. He says this is the reason. This is the reason that the identification of core values is what the company has to do. Where did I leave that? Excuse me while I fumble through my papers here. Okay, I don't have it. All right. So, well, yes, it is. Thank you, Dr. Madden, for pointing out what's in front of me. All right. If business is about producing goods and services, then the value of a particular product is the key to business success. Simply that in pride and also for financial reasons, someone wants to put something on the market that gives the consumer something that other products do not. It gives the consumer something better, and that is the value it has for them. Now, the second point here is that the identification of core values and purposes of a business is something deeper than the description of a particular product, and provides a base for meeting changes in time and culture. So we're being invited here to think about value a little more deeply. Now, maybe the deepest way we could think about value is to think about McDonald's, the hamburger place. You know, you want a quarter pounder, you want a Big Mac, you want a Happy Meal. Well, that, you know, if you're just thinking about the product, those are the kinds of things that you're thinking about. But if you think about the whole context that McDonald's gives you, I think it's someplace in the text he says, McDonald's is not in the fast food business. Well, that's a wake up. Huh? McDonald's is not in the fast food business, but it is in the parent hassle relief business. Think Happy Meals and playgrounds. So you have, you know, if you're a soccer mom or if you're a baseball dad, and at 6 o'clock and the kids are finished with the game, you take them to McDonald's because they're sure to find something that they would like there, and it's what, how does he put it? It's the parent hassle relief business. I have to say I don't use McDonald's very much, but when I do use it, I'm generally going and visit my son in Southern California, and so you have to go down I-5. I don't know how much you guys know about I-5 from the Bay Area down to Bakersfield, but it's wasteland. Well, actually, the people that live there wouldn't say that. It's all crops and so on, but for driving, it's flat and so on. So we always stop and we look for, it says services up ahead, restaurants and so on. My wife and I look for McDonald's. Why? Well, not because we are so in love with burgers, but we know that if we stop there, it'll be a clean place. We know if we stop there, we know what the menu is going to be. We know if we stop there, we can eat, get a little bit and take it in the car, or we can stay there and eat it. We can use the restrooms. We know what to expect. Whereas when you're driving and you see other places like the so-and-so's ranch, or this and so on, you don't know how much it's going to cost when you go in. You don't know. So McDonald's is such a familiar sight that it's a refuge all away from home if you to travel, particularly if you travel with kids. But we don't travel with kids, but we like the burgers and the air conditioning. So you can see what McDonald's is providing, and somebody's thought about this. Is not just food, but something like we might call a total experience, something that is reliable. If you go into a McDonald's in San Diego or in Los Angeles or in Bakersfield or in Fresno and so on, you know what to expect. So that's, you know, when we're thinking about value, then we're thinking about something much larger than a particular product, but rather we're thinking about the whole experience. So that's what a company wants. They give a lot of thought to it. What they want to bring to the market is something that promises a rewarding experience to the consumer. Like if you get your little Mercedes-Benz home, or you get your BMW home, then you can wash it in front of the house, and all your neighbors can say, "Ooh, ah." You know, it's what you say. It's a status symbol. It's symbol that you're making it, that you're a successful person. There's a whole lot in that package. The other thing that is in there that's kind of scary, it's German, and Germany has a history of craftsmanship and engineering. So there's the perception that goes along with it. You buy this car, it's going to go a long way. It's made with German engineering. The Japanese are similar. They have a very profound, long history of craftsmanship, meticulous attention to detail, and so on. And all of a sudden, our land is filled with Hondas and Toyotas. Because they're perceived to be reliable, they're perceived to be a good value, the whole package. So that's the second point that we're focusing on there. The identification of core values and purposes in a business is something deeper than a description of its particular product, and provides a basis for meeting changes in time and culture. Okay, what if you have your books for you? If you have your books there? I would like you to turn to pages 50 and 51, because he gets into this issue. As I say, value is a very abstract word, but when he goes through these various companies, Honor goes through the company, we put a little flesh on it, on these bones, just abstract values. He says, what is the value? What is the corporate value? And the first company that he mentions is Disney. Now, okay, he says Disney means no cynicism, creativity, imagination, fanatical attention to detail, and the promulgation of wholesome American values. So that you just, the Disney name, you might say the reputation they have, the brand they are, brings all of those feelings at one time. I have to say that when I go to, I'm not a really great shopper. When I go to buy cards for anniversaries and cards for birthdays and cards for things, if anything has Mickey Mouse on it, I buy it. If anything has Snoopy on it, I buy it. That these symbols of corporations, these symbols carry with them a whole wealth of associations. They carry with them a whole world. So Disney is a very rich brand. What else does he give us? Now this is, I'm not speaking out of experience here, but I've had a class in which we talked about this. IKEA. Do you ever go to IKEA? Do you know anything about it? Well, the students that I last talked to, they love it. Innovation, simplicity, looking after the interest of the majority. Now, I think of IKEA mainly as furniture. One of the students was saying that what you're seeing there is all kinds of parents buying furniture to send their kids off to college with. Now, I don't know what experience you've had. If you were here and we could talk, then we could get more deeply into IKEA. They begged me to go and see it. They said, you have to go, you get Swedish meatballs.
Someone told me that.
And you're not hassled by salesmen. So apparently IKEA is a thing that presents a whole world. And it's as we would say in the 60s, it's a trip. Okay, now he's got one more category here. Those are corporate top values, the things that, you know, what Disney wants to do, what McDonald's wants to do, what they want to offer to the customer. And he also, Honor also talks about core purposes. And some of the companies that I'm not that familiar with 3M, but he says that what 3M is up to their purpose is to solve unsolved problems innovatively. Then he mentions Hewlett Packard. to make a technical contribution for the advancement of humanity. I have to say, I have a Hewlett-Packard printer at home. I bought it 25 years ago. It works every day. I've never even brought it in for repairs. I don't know how Hewlett-Packard makes any money on their printers because they're so reliable. Then he mentions Walmart, which is controversial. Let's say, at least if you're from California, it's controversial. Walmart seeks to improve the standard of living for people who could not otherwise afford the products the company sells. So everything is kind of marked down on a lower price, but it's available to many more people, bringing items to people's lives that they might not. So we might say, in some sense, it's serving the poor, or serving the lower middle class, or serving a group of people that are otherwise not very well served. The criticism, of course, is that Walmart doesn't treat their employees that great. They don't pay them that much. They overwork them, and they don't give them fringe benefits or so on. But I think that Walmart is working on that. So these are, I'd say, abstract concepts. But somebody is meeting in a boardroom. Somebody is meeting with the advertising people to say exactly how do we want to present our product. What associations do we want to, what athlete do we want to use to wear our shoes, to wear our shirts, to promote them. Buy these shoes and you'll be like Michael Jordan. Buy these shoes, you'll be like Steph Curry. It carries with it the whole world of professional basketball, let's say. Those things are thought out. Those associations, which we don't even think about, but you have to stop and pause to think about, have been carefully thought out. So that's what we're talking about. What kind of that value does a company bring to the market? Now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about this section in the honor chapter. Our employees are our greatest asset, and I'm on page 56. Maybe I don't want to be on 56. Maybe 55. On page 55, the first full paragraph there, at the top of the page. However, if the real business story today is about delivering value, as we have argued in the first part of this chapter, then the role of the individual becomes more significant, even more significant. Since only persons have values, only persons can deliver values. People within an organization cannot deliver the values of that organization unless they are attuned to those values. Since values are the result of a lifetime of experience, they cannot be learned in some straightforward fashion, as learning a new computer program. I used this example before last week, but I'll use it again, just the way that I have an Apple computer and I go into the Apple store and I'm met there by young employees that seem to know quite a bit. And those young people are already, let's say, communicating the values of the Apple company. They're enthusiastic, not knowledgeable, like they love this work. And I'm fumbling around on the various devices they have. They're not pushy, they're not rude, and so on. They say, "Oh, we can fix that, fix it free of charge." Say, these are people that love what they do, and they love helping old geezers like me. They love sharing the knowledge they have, and that technical knowledge, superior knowledge, and so on, superior care of and attention to detail and so on. That's communicated to you the minute you put your foot through the Apple store. The minute you put your foot through the door. Those things and what they're very cleverly at, young people in the front of the store incarnating that. It's a living thing. And so this is his point. You have to have employees, you have to have management that believes in the product, that values the product, that is enthused about the product. And so Honor's point is that you cannot you cannot replace these people with robots. I mean, as useful as robots might be, the value of a company ultimately is rooted in the people of the company. Even if you're understaffed, the basic foundation of a company is the people, and that brings us to the next point. Persons are the critical difference in a world where knowledge and values are the competitive advantage. And I'm on page 56, and there's a quotation there in the middle of the page from Bill Hewlett of Hewlett Packard, and he says, as I look back on my life's work, I'm probably most proud of having helped to create a company that, by virtue of its values, practices, and success, has had a tremendous impact on the way companies are managed around the world. I'm particularly proud of that. I'm particularly proud that I'm leaving behind an ongoing organization that can live on as a role model long after I'm gone. So I take it what he's saying there, he's happy with the procedures they have, he's happy with the management style they have and all that. He's happy about the people that created it. And he's hoping that this can outlive him. So persons are the critical difference in a world where knowledge and values are the competitive advantage. So just as a kind of summary statement, if the product, you might say, is more important than the money, and if a company is going to live or die on the perceived value of the products that they offer, then persons are particularly important, because it's persons that give that value to things. It's persons that use things and find that value in them. Value is a very human word. Persons are the critical difference. Okay. Now I hope this helps you with the paper that you will be writing, and just want to talk a little bit about the paper you're writing. Yeah. That's not it. What's that?
You changed the assignment this week?
Yeah, but all right. Okay, so the assignment, what does honor mean by the terms core value and culture? How do these ideas relate to the motto, our employees are our greatest asset? Now, there's a section of the writing assignment following there. What are some of your own core values, and how would you know if they fit within the core values of a company or an institution that you sought employment with? I think the questioning is a little bit awkward. Not the question, what does honor mean by core values and culture, because the chapter looks at that closely. And how do these ideas relate to the motto, our employees are our greatest asset? That's fine. But if you want to instead focus on the question I wanted to ask you and want you to think about and write on is if you were starting up your own business, if you were starting up your own service in some particular field, in medicine, in education, in hospitality, in entertainment, and if you're starting up something, yeah, what values would you want it to have? What would you want to bring to the market that you see that people want and that people need and perhaps they're not getting? What are you going to bring? If you're in a service position, what kind of services are people greatly in need of and greatly wanting that you want to provide? And as you think about it, why do you want to provide it? What are the values you're trying to communicate to someone else? I hope that doesn't make that too confusing, but I guess what I'm doing is to personalizing a little bit. The question that I have here is, if you want to be employed with a company, how could you tell if their values lined up with yours? That's okay. But I think more personally, if you're going to found a company, if you have a startup, you're going to found a service and so on, what do you want to make sure that it has and that it offers people that makes it competitive in the marketplace? Okay. I have a little bit more for you here. I don't know if we have enough time, if I've used too much time or on the nature of the human good. Maybe we can go through this. Okay, this is I think this is not from the honor book, but it's complimentary. And so what I have is a chart for you, which I want to bring up on the screen, and then I want to talk about it and shed some light on it and help you understand it. You should be able to see it now. Okay, so I'm guessing, I'm hoping that you can see this chart and that you can hear me. Okay, so the title of the chart is The Structure of the Human Good. So the human good, of course, is a very broad topic. All human good. We're just concerned about, we're looking at it in terms of business. But this is a sort of fundamental scheme of terms and relationships that I think is helpful to light up any human institution, whether it be a business or a church or an army or a family. And so I'll read you. This is from one of my books and one of my favorite authors, Bernard Lonergan, on the structure of the human good. The human good is at once individual and social. And some account of the way the two steps combine has now to be attempted. This will be done by selecting some 18 terms and gradually relating them to one another. So what this is meant is a way to how to think about the way in which the operations, the good, the value that the individual has and brings to the community. The way in which the value of the individual and the value of the social context, how does he put it? The human good is at once individual and social. So how do those two things interrelate? How do they connect? You see up at the top, we have three terms: the individual, the social, and ends. And so those are the three columns. Then we want to look at in terms of the rows there that go across: capacity, need, operation, cooperation, particular good. So first, let's just talk about the individual. That's in the first column. You see two terms underneath the individual: potentiality and actuation. Now, what that means, he says individuals are born with capacities and needs. And the capacities they have are for operation. generally they can operate to get their own particular goods. That is to say, one of the first things, when you have a newborn and he's growing into a toddler and so on, that they want to learn how to feed themselves. They want to hold the spoon themselves. They want to put that in their mouth themselves. That was not a capacity they had when they were born, to grip something, to focus on something, to use it to bring food from the bowl to your mouth. But that's what they want to do. So the particular good is the individual feeding himself or herself. And the unique thing about human beings is they have a capacity for development. They have a capacity to develop operations, and just the operations they need to secure particular goods. If we were in a very primitive society of hunter-gatherers, all the men would have to go off with spears and so on, and try to find some meat, try to find an animal to bring down and bring back to the village so people could have meat for a while. They have the capacity to make the weapons they need. They have the capacity to hunt and so on, and that brings them back a particular good. But Lonergan says that this is for the next section, that individuals have the capacity to operate, but they primarily operate by cooperating. So now we don't go out and hunt our own food and gather our own vegetables from the backyard, at least not so much. But we cooperate. We go to the supermarket where all the food that we need and want is there, ready for us to pick up. And so that's a matter of huge cooperation. You could get not just particular goods, but quite a few goods. So most of the operating we do is co-operating, and that requires, if I'm now in column three, institutions, roles, and tasks. So somebody has to bring in the bread, somebody has to bring in the produce each day, somebody has to bring in the ice cream, and all of these things. There's a settled way to do it. I noticed that if you go to the store on Sunday looking for fresh bread, you don't get it because they're bringing fresh bread in on Monday. The shelves on Sunday are empty because the bakeries take Sunday off. And so that's the second thing, that there's cooperation, and it is organized in a very differentiated way, where you've got the people in the supermarket, you got the cashiers, you got the ones that stack the shelves, you got the ones in the delicatessen, you've got the managers, and so on. And there's all kinds of trucks pulling up with different kinds of goods. And so all that is an institution that has roles and tasks, and different people have different tasks and roles. You have a butcher. Okay, now that brings us into the third group, in individual plasticity, perfectibility, development, skill, and the good of order. In the category of the individual plasticity and perfectibility, that human beings are capable of infinite number and kinds of tasks. Whatever the institution needs, you have someone that can do that. And the reason they do is because human beings have the ability to develop skills. Now, if you look at an ape, apes they use tools a little bit, at least some of the videos I've seen. They take a little stick and they put it down in the anthill or into an ant mound, and they pull out ants on their hand. But generally speaking, other primates than human beings don't have an opposable thumb. And picking ants out of anthills is as far as they're going to get. But Mozart was playing the piano at 3 years old. Mozart was writing concertos at 12. And he could, his hands, he had a plasticity and a perfectibility. He trained and could play things and play better than anyone else. What he's done in a really excellent way, all of us can do. We can develop the skills we need to fulfill the tasks and roles that institutions have. So I'd say one skill that you've all got to learn now, and I need to learn it more than you do, is how to use a computer. Because the institutions we're in more and more have as a role and as task to have computer skills. And it's just a matter of practice and so on, but you can develop the habits you need. You can get good at it. You don't have to, like in typing, we would hunt and peck one finger at a time. This, so the individual has the capacity to learn skills, and the social institutions need those skills. So you also could you could learn how to weave baskets, but the opportunities for working in an institution are less because there's not that much call for basket weaving, but computers there is, and that brings us the good of order. If you see on what's the end of that, the good of order is, let me just read this a little bit to you. Well, my dinner for me now, my dinner for me today is a particular good, but dinner every day for all the members of a group that earn it is part of the good of order. They make sure that the store's shelves are filled and that the goods that you need are there and that you can cook them and do them. Again, education for me was a particular good, but education for everyone that wants it is another part of the good of order, that these things happen on a recurrent basis and regularly, and you can anticipate them every semester. NDNU comes up with a new set of courses you can sign up for, and so on. And this is the good of order to make sure that there's students to fill the desks and classes to teach the students, and so on. And that's an order that somebody works very hard to maintain. Okay, that brings us to the last row, up at down at the bottom. Liberty, orientation and conversion, personal relations, terminal that value. Liberty means what do we want to say with regards to the individual? They come into the world their sheer potentiality, but due to their plasticity and perfectibility, they can be formed and shaped and trained. Higher level than that is liberty, because liberty means not that you're not determined at all, but that you're self-determining. The skills and the knowledge and experience you have is experience and knowledge you've chosen to have. So that's what you're bringing to the institutions, you're bringing to the business, and so all the knowledge, the experience, the values that you have. And in the business institution, since we're talking about business, the way that we work, the way that we cooperate and so on is within a matrix of personal relationships, which either are good, close, or bad. People are not in communication with one another. Personal relations are an absolutely necessary part of the success of an institution, the success of a business. It's within that context we exercise our liberty. And the end there is a terminal value. The terminal values that these things are shooting for is the occurrence of particular goods, the occurrence of a good order, and the occurrence of goods and values that really are good and valuable. Like one of the things that we have now, controversy going on is on vaping. So it's not even clear that vaping is of that value. It's not even clear that it's good for you or that it's neutral. There's people that are saying that it's bad for you. Well, if that's not the kind of company that you want a company that is going to be promoting particular goods and a good order and things that are valuable. Now, the last set of terms that we have here is orientation and conversion. In orientation, there's the orientation of the person and the orientation of the institution. Both of them can be healthy. That what the person is trying to do is to achieve something good, to achieve something valuable, and what the company may be doing is just trying to get by, skimping corners, not following through with things, so that you could have people with good intentions in a nevertheless not too ethical situation. For people, there are those who are basically at work for what they can get out of it themselves, and that's the only question they ask: what's in it for me? That is not the kind of value that the institution needs. So sometimes we need a conversion from people that are, the big question they ask is what's in it for me. We have to have a conversion from that to what really is good, what really is valuable, what ought I to be doing. So this is just the main thing I think I wanted you to see here is the way the level of values, which is here the bottommost, the way the level of values is built out of and comes out of and is based upon these earlier levels of operation, the sort of the mechanics of a business. That at the height of it, at the highest level, is the pursuit of values by converted people that really care about the good within a context of personal relationships. All right, I hope this helps you think a little more broadly about values in business. And if now I didn't ask, but can we take any kind of questions?
I think we stop share. And then it goes back to here. And I don't see any chat questions. So I think you're set.
Any chat questions?